Thank you all so much for joining us over your lunch hour. To start, we at NASA like to begin with a land acknowledgement, which is even more fitting for the topic today. So NASA respectfully acknowledges that we are located on traditional lands, now known as Treaty 6 and 7 territory, home to many First Nations, Métis, and other Indigenous peoples. Decolonization, racial equity, and a diverse, inclusive, and accessible workplace for all members are fundamental NASA values that guide us in our everyday work and decisions we make. And we encourage members to reflect upon their own relationship with the land and their responsibility to this land, and will continue to be an active partner with these and other Indigenous allies across Turtle Island so long as we are welcome. Especially in the context of today, I think it's really important to think about how we can go beyond land acknowledgements, as they tend to be kind of institutionalized within our different spaces. So would encourage you to think about that as well. Before I get started, I want to introduce our speaker today. Andrea Menard is Métis from the abolished Red River Settlement and is the lead educational developer, Indigenizing Curricula and Pedagogies at the University of Alberta. Andrea has over 25 years experience relationship building with Indigenous nations across Treaties 4, 6, 7, 8, and 10, as well as the Métis homeland regions and with Indigenous nations on the unceded lands of British Columbia. Andrea is also a sessional instructor and teaches reconciliation and lawyers at the University of Calgary Faculty of Law and co-instructs In Search of Reconciliation through dispute resolution at Osgoode Hall Law School. She is an academic partner on the Authentic Allyship Project, which I know we'll be hearing about a little bit later, and on the advisory board for the Center for Constitutional Studies, the co-chair of the Indigenous Foundation Subcommittee for the Honorable Beverly Brown. And I'll ask you to help me with this pronunciation, Andrea, if you don't mind.
Cool. I don't know how to pronounce it.
Well, I'll throw it in the chat, and so we know what I'm talking about here. But absolutely should have done my research before that, which is a restorative justice pilot project and is on the Calgary Legal Guidance at Sawu Mohawk Tsi Matas Blackfoot for Before Being Judged Indigenous Advisory Committee. And was recently awarded the top 25 most influential lawyers in Canada from Canadian Lawyer magazine. So a very illustrious and really dense biography. So we're really honored that you can join us for this today, and thank you so much for spending your lunch hour with us.
Thank you, Cole. It's an honor to be here, everybody. Thanks for having me today for your Lunch and Learn. Okay, so what I want to do is I want us all to go on to www.menti.com and please use the code 16547098. I've put it in the chat. So Cole, yeah, can you help me out? Awesome. Thank you. So this is our first question. We're just getting warmed up here now. This is all anonymous. Mentimeter is anonymous, but we do have screenshots. So I'll be using Mentimeter throughout the presentation, but this is just to get a sense of how people are feeling out there today. This is a very Indigenous way to be. We want to know how we're feeling mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally. So let's punch in that number and share. Oh, and then I'm going to share my screen so we can all see our responses. There we go. Oh, good. Excited to hear me. Energized, tired, focused, curious, good, ready to learn, content, good. People are feeling good out there. Yeah. Hungry. Uh-oh, someone didn't bring their lunch. Excellent. Cold. Someone needs a blanket. Lots to do. Yes, we have lots to do today. Oh, and we have lots to do in this world, right? We are just getting overburdened with more and more things, but things keep piling up, and more is asked of us as we go further into this world and see the equities and inequities. We see Indigenous people in our world. We understand that Canada has a different history than most of us grew up in. So we're learning the truth, and we're learning about reconciliation and what we can do in our professional lives as well as our personal lives. But I'm focusing on our professional lives today, what we can do for reconciliation in this day and age. Okay, that's great. So yeah, I'm just gonna stop share. And I'm gonna go to, oh good, people are still inputting information, that's good. Keep on doing that. So I have a little PowerPoint here. So it's called Sharing Indigenous Knowledges. And when I do a big screen of it, it loses the words. So I'm just going to go and follow along. You guys can see my my next slide if you want on the side here. So the goals for today are learning, unlearning, and relearning. This is really important to do because what we have all learned requires us to look at it again, right? Our educational system, the way we were raised, we didn't know a lot. Our history, we didn't know a lot. So we're relearning, no matter how old we are right now, we're relearning, and that's okay. That's okay to do. It makes a lot of us feel uncomfortable, but this is good. We're in academia, we need to have nimble minds, so it's good to do. So we're here today to learn, unlearn, and then relearn. How can we go further in reconciliation? How can we go further in understanding Indigenous peoples? I'm going to touch on Indigenous ways of knowing, and this could be the 7 sacred teachings that Dr. Florence Glanfield teaches here, or states here at the University of Alberta. She's our Vice Provost of Indigenous programming. So I'm going to give you a scenario, so you're going to go into small groups, and we're going to discuss a scenario. I'm going to give you the tools that you need to go forward in this in 2023, and then we're going to have some reflections. So I'm glad Cole talked about the land, and not to make it a rote process, because I would like to talk a little bit more about that. So a land acknowledgement is a formal statement that recognizes and respects Indigenous peoples. And in our case, at the University of Alberta, Treaties 6, 7, and Florence Glanfield also says Treaty 8, because we also are up in the northern regions doing research up there as well. And the Métis homeland regions, okay? This is the ancestral land of the Blackfoot and then the Cree nations. So protocol can be to recognize, you know, the first peoples that we know were here, and those are the Blackfoot, then the Cree, right? But it's up to you whether you want to recognize that. I like to recognize the ancestral, then I like to do a progression. So North Campus sits on Pappas Chase land. Now the Pappas Chase people were expelled from North Campus illegally. So there's a whole history that we're actually on land that is unceded. This is also Métis script land that North Campus sits on. And so again, the government kicked off Métis people. Métis people had to go to St. Paul de Métis and create their own communities up north there. They were then kicked out of St. Paul de Métis and were sent to their winter camps, which is now Métis settlements here in Alberta. Alberta is unique because we have Métis land here. We have Métis settlements here. So when Indigenous people are together, we always start off by honoring the land. This tradition now has been passed over to fellow colleagues to do when starting an important meeting or gathering. Land acknowledgements can be a good way for people to learn more about their own connections to the land. The elders, so in Indigenous communities, we have elders, and those are usually the wise ones, right? The elders tell us that a land acknowledgement actually should come from a personal reflection. and it should not be rote. But as Cole was stating, and I understand, consistency within organizations here at the U Alberta, you know, we always go to the bottom line, what's consistent, but please keep in mind for other meetings that you're a part of, that you can do a self-reflection. Indigenous peoples and elders, we want people to continually process their relationships to this land. So it's really important that it's not become rote. All right, next slide. Okay, so here is Murray Sinclair. So he was the chair, the chief commissioner of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission in Canada. So I don't know if everyone knows about the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, but residential school survivors said, okay, we need Canada to learn our truths. So Murray Sinclair and 2 other commissioners went across Canada, and people heard their truths. Whoever was invited, non-Indigenous communities, Indigenous communities, we were all invited to hear residential school survivors' truth. And that's housed at the National Center for Truth and Reconciliation in Manitoba. So those records are there. Those recordings are there. So this is Murray Sinclair, and now he's stating to us, it's not a spectator sport. All right, so what do we do? All right, so let's go back to Mentimeter here. And I'm gonna stop my share, and I'm gonna share my other screen. And, oh, welcome to NASA, here it is. Okay, so let's do some work here. Let's do some good work. On your Mentimeter, what is reconciliation? Is reconciliation over with? Has it just begun? Or are we midway through? Just begun. Midway through. Good, everyone's answering. I'm glad. Again, it's anonymous. You don't have to know everything. It's why we're here today. Good, good, good. Excellent, getting lots of participants. Great. So what I'm gathering from this scale is we have just begun. And it is a difficult journey that will make a lot of us feel uncomfortable on both sides, Indigenous and non-Indigenous. This is a constant work in progress. This is not going to be over any time soon. So when we understand that, then we can get comfortable. Let's get comfortable with that, right? We're just beginning. We are not midway through. We are just beginning. Great, thanks everybody. Okay, so I'm here to talk about practicing reconciliation in your professional life. So I would like to get a temperature reading on where you are at. So you practice reconciliation in your professional life by, do you require more guidance? Are you reading the Indigenous strategic plan and you're waiting for leadership to take next steps? Are you educating yourself by going to workshops like this? Or are you not understanding why we're practicing reconciliation and you feel like we're all equal and you don't understand why we're doing this? Okay, good. So I know that it seems like an individual process, and I am here to try and unite us, try and form a collective, try to give you tools in order for this to be a process where we can all join in and collaborate together. Because too often we're all in our individual silos and we're doing this work on our own. And a lot of people ask me, I don't know how. I don't know how to do it. And it is a very, very difficult question, right? But the Indigenous Strategic Plan at the U Alberta does tell us what to do. We have themes We have guiding principles, and let me get into that. Yes, this one. All right. So how do we respond? Okay, so how do we respond? Let's identify goals. Let's be Indigenous led, right? Let's consult with Indigenous people in this. Let's not make decisions on our own, right? We need Indigenous people's input. Of course, learning, unlearning, relearning needs to be taken. We have to analyze what we're doing now in order to understand how we can move forward. Self-reflection is really important as well. Where are you at on the journey, and how do you want to contribute going forward? Collaborating, consulting, respectful dialogue. So we're here to be respectful with one another. It says it in the Indigenous Strategic Plan. We're not here to fight. We're here to understand how we can move forward together. Tools, commitment. It takes commitment to be on this journey. It takes time. It takes patience to be on this journey too. So there's going to be no quick fixes. We're all in this together. Okay. So for the NASA mission and vision, I looked it up, and the vision is a better future for ourselves and others, which is great. It fits right into the Indigenous Strategic Plan. This is an Indigenous knowledge and principle that we can all, it's great. You guys already have it going on before we even begin. So this is a really good sign. Mission: to improve the economic, social, and working conditions of our members through representation and advocacy, and to contribute to the improvement of those conditions in society. This is very Indigenous, right? I love it. We can do a lot with this mission. So what I like to do is I like to combine the Indigenous Strategic Plan at U Alberta, right, with NASA, the NASA plus Indigenous Strategic Plan. So it's a 5-year plan. It sets out a series of goals and actions with dates that the university will collectively take in order to advance our collective vision. So I'm going to quote Dr. Florence Glanfield here. The plan recognizes our collective responsibility to acknowledge our history and to honor those who came before us, and to follow the 7 sacred teachings: love, respect, honesty, courage, wisdom, and humility. To know the first 6 together is to know the truth. The plan also recognizes our responsibilities to the generations to come, knowing that we have the power to leave them a beautiful legacy. In essence, honoring the past, living the present, and shaping the future. I love this. This is all in a nutshell is what we need to do. Simple, right? So let's get on. Self-assessment tool number 1. Okay, I'm a practical person. Let's see what we can do together. These are the 4 questions that you can ask yourselves in your units. However you want to organize yourselves, right? You can have team units, NASA units, whatever units that you're a part of. What are you currently doing as a unit, whatever that is, to advance the goals and actions of the Indigenous Strategic Plan? That's the first question, right? Tool number 1. This is toolkit number 1, self-assessment. Where are you? What can you be doing more of? What are you doing that we can change? And what can we start doing? 4 questions, right, that can guide us. I'm going to give you a toolkit number 2. I'm going to be doing intent to action workshops in 2023 with various groups and various people. This is a second tool, but it doesn't matter. You can have intent to action first. It doesn't matter. It provides a structure for your unit to review the Indigenous Strategic Plan, identify the goals and actions that are relevant to your unit, and assess how you can contribute to implementing your goals through some specific selected activities. So you just look at the Indigenous Strategic Plan, you look at So it's called Grading Past, Present, and Future, and we have timelines on it, right? So you look at these timelines, sort out what you have to do in 2022, which is almost ending, in 2023, right? And you just give it a go. Sounds easy, right? Let me give you a scenario. So this is where we're going to break into groups of 5. We're going to talk about this for 5 minutes and come back as a group to see what we've all come up with. So we're going to share. So someone has to speak for the group. Scenario. It is 2 weeks before Orange Shirt Day, and you are working at a U Alberta conference, and you have to be dressed in business attire. You are getting paid extra for being there since it's a stat. You want to show support for National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, but don't know how you can do this since no one is discussing wearing orange t-shirts at the planning meetings. What do you do? So let's group together. What do? You want to wear an orange shirt? Has to be business attire. No one's talking about it. It's 2 weeks before this is happening. You're working on this observance. What are your feelings? What are your reactions? What do you do? Right? And we're in present time now, so we haven't done our tools yet. We're in present time. How are you going to approach this from whatever position you're at? So 5 minutes, everyone, and then we're going to come back to the big group and share. What are we going to do?
All right, folks, you should be seeing the option to join your group. If you just click on the button on your screen, it should take you right there. And should I turn the chat back on, or?
Yeah, sure, cool, thanks.
Awesome. All right, everyone, we're just gonna wait for people to wrap up in their breakout rooms. There's about 30 seconds left, but welcome back to the main session. And we'll get into what everyone discussed in their groups about the scenario in just a minute. So hopefully everyone chose their facilitator, but if not, you might be voluntold if no one steps up. We'll start with our smallest but mighty room 6, which was Cindy, Christine, and Sarah. If one of you could talk about what you discussed in your group.
Yep. So we said that we would bring it up at the planning meeting and say, look, this event is coinciding with Orange Shirt Day. This is a really important thing to make mention of, like when we're doing our land acknowledgement. As part of the land acknowledgement, let's talk about the fact that this is happening on Orange Shirt Day, what Orange Shirt Day means, and how we relate to it. We would wear orange shirts under our work blazers, you know, and suggest that there would be the opportunity for others to wear it. I mean, I think it would be ideal if there was a possibility of buying orange shirts at the event. But Cindy also had a great suggestion that she would have a QR code there with her so that if people wanted to learn more about what Orange Shirt Day means, they could just scan the QR code and get that information. But we also talked about a lot of people don't say anything because they don't feel like they're expert enough on the topic to be able to speak to it. So we talked about, you know, we don't have to be experts to be able to say something, and that we don't want to put the burden for explaining it entirely on Indigenous peoples, because that's they already have that. So even if we're not experts, we know something about it.
Awesome. Thanks, Sarah, and thanks, Group 6. We'll go to room 5 now, which was Dina, Jenny, Jillian, and Sydney.
I'll take that for a group. So something we talked about is sending communication to attendees ahead of the conference to encourage them to wear orange on that day. And to acknowledge that the conference is taking place on that day. We did also discuss that, you know, it's kind of inappropriate to schedule a conference on that day anyways, but being 2 weeks out, we didn't really know the process or specifics of canceling that day specifically or what comes with that. Something else we talked about is could look into the possibility of having Indigenous created pins or t-shirts available either for purchase or the pins to give out at the event in case people didn't wear anything or didn't see the messaging. And on the topic of like the attire for the conference and business attire, we discussed as well like the concept of appropriate work clothing also being kind of like a colonized idea as well. And so we didn't necessarily think that that should be a hindrance, or rather shouldn't be a hindrance to asking people to wear a t-shirt, because it's kind of an arbitrary thing that we ask of people anyways. So that's kind of just a general overview of what we talked about. Other people in my group, if I forgot something, please do feel free to bring it up.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Sydney, and thanks, Group 5. Group 4 was Tracy, Kristen, Karen, Joanna, and apologies if I'm saying this wrong, Sealed?
Close. Kaylee.
Close. Please correct me.
That's okay. It's just Kaylee. Say everybody, hi, Andrea. I have to say your earrings are fantastic. Have to appreciate the beading. So we had a great chat, and we did talk a lot about the points that everyone has kind of brought up. We also talked about the shirt pins that you can now buy from your local Indigenous feeders. You can also wear an orange ribbon, which is significant of the campaign as well. We also talked about wearing your orange shirt and your blazer, so you're still nice and business casual. And also 2 weeks out, still, yeah, talk to your team and coordinate if you like. And even if you don't want to coordinate, go ahead and wear your orange shirt on your own as well. The other thing that we talked about is maybe even talking about the significance that it isn't, yes, we call it Orange Shirt Day, but it is actually Truth and Reconciliation Day. And how we, I had also mentioned that to recognize the day almost like a remembrance day, where it's a time not necessarily for celebration, but more of a time of reflection and remembering and honoring your way forward. So, and not losing the story of Phyllis Webstadt and why we do call it Orange Shirt Day. So expanding your conversations as well within your group as to the significance of that day. But yeah, it's just not an orange t-shirt. You can represent that orange whichever way that you wish. So thank you. And if I missed anything, group, feel free to contribute.
Thank you, Kaylee. Room 3 was Chantel, Genevieve, Lori, and Rachel.
I'm sorry, we didn't actually pick a speaker, but I think Lori should speak on our behalf because she was our Indigenous representative in our room, and I think she would speak to this really well.
I think you're muted, Lori.
You're right. I just turned on the camera on both. So I think our group, we discussed that we should wear or like put out like a discussion or bring it up like, yes, we should wear orange shirt or pins or ribbons on the day of. I did like the addition that people said that just to have artists featured to sell the day of. I don't think we discussed that. And that somebody brought up that during the session or the workshop that we bring up that, you know, because it coincides on this day, that we take time to reflect as a group and, you know, take time to remember or honor like the true intent of the day, which I thought was a great addition, because I think that honestly is missing a lot of the times, because again, like mirroring what has been said is that it is a day of remembrance. It's not honestly a day of celebration. And I think when we wear shirts, it gets lost in translation sometimes. Like it's great to see everyone in orange, and it's amazing and uplifting. Especially I imagine for drivers, I mean a lot to them. And because yeah, and it's really hard. And you know, we're not there to celebrate, it's to remember. And also somebody in the group mentioned that they like to wear, they bought from an artist orange beaded earrings that they wear throughout the year. They continue to honor and remember those throughout the year, not just the one day, and wear the orange. They have various orange shirts they've accumulated, and I would mirror that as well. I do that all the time, almost quite regularly. I wear an orange shirt just because I want to honor both my parents and all of my aunts and uncles and cousins and everyone. So it's just one small thing that I do. So yeah, I think that's kind of what we discussed. I don't think hopefully if I forgot something, please feel free to add. I'm really bad at summarizing and remembering, so.
No, that was great, Lori. Thank you so much. And thanks to group 3. Group 2, Dawn, Joy, Manon, Oksana, and Ray.
Thank you, Cole. So we also had an expert in the room, and first we asked an expert what would be appropriate to wear. Is it supposed to be shirt or can be something else? And the response we received is that the spirit matters more than the attire. And this opened up our creativity. We talk about orange ribbons, and we also indicated that we can incorporate our reflection on orange ribbon or orange shirt and land acknowledgement. And we also thought about the beaded orange shirt symbol, or can be an orange dress shirt for men, or orange dress for women, or orange tie, or a scarf, just to not to think about bringing colonial components, but slowly doing an opposite thing, decolonizing official attire and official components. So that's what we came up, and I didn't want to repeat what was said before.
Perfect. Thanks, Oksana, and thanks, group 2. And last but not least, we have group 1, which was Annette, Heather, Jennifer, Lisa, and Nick.
I guess we'll talk because we didn't pick anyone either. We discussed most of what's already been said. First of all, that we would bring it up, if not at one of the planning meetings that with our supervisor, because it sort of depends on what's appropriate. Also that it doesn't necessarily have to be a t-shirt, or like some other people we talked about wearing the t-shirt under a blazer. We talked about the pins as well, and yeah, just more making sure that everyone understood the importance of the day, and that it sort of just hadn't been forgotten, and that the date was sort of picked arbitrarily for the conference.
Thanks so much. Andrea, I'll turn it back to you.
Well, thanks everybody for working on that. Some great points were raised. I love that Lori reminded us that orange shirt isn't just one day a year that we can remember. throughout the year. So that's amazing, an amazing reminder. Also, it's also about role modeling, right? So you're going to be the champions of change. You're going to role model and have others look up and say, oh, okay, well, they're actually doing this. They're stepping out, they're decolonizing, they're learning, unlearning, and relearning what can be expected of them, how they can conduct themselves, right? So this is a learning process for all of us, and it takes some champions of change. I really loved all of your guys' ideas, amazing. I loved incorporating the orange shirt into your land acknowledgement, right? I know we're all pressured to do the rote land acknowledgement, but let's add that additionally to the land acknowledgement, right? Let's get a little creative. So this is also a creative process as we all go along, because this is cutting edge stuff. None of us have done this before. So this is great for all the creative people out there, that ideas that we can come up with together in regards to decolonizing, indigenizing, and practicing reconciliation together. So I have seen on the Mentimeter that people are answering. So I'm gonna, oh, forgot to mention, nobody's talking about Orange Shirt Tuesday as it happens. What do you mean, Sarah, by what as it happens?
Sorry, one of the group members mentioned that they were just starting with U of A last year, just around that time, and they saw posters all around for saying Orange Shirt Day, get your orange shirts here or whatever, but it wasn't a part of a conversations that were happening, excuse me, that were happening around them.
Yeah, great point, Sarah. We need to, so it's often on the Indigenous people's shoulders, and we're overburdened a lot. So we need help in organizing all of our events across campus so that people can help us and people can learn. So let's do a better job, all of us, next year, 2023. Let's start some committees, and let's get people on the ball with what everyone is doing for Orange Shirt Day, National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, what people can do to help, attend, et cetera, et cetera. So we do need a lot of work on that. It's a good point. Let me share my screen and watch the Mentimeter as it happens. So I've asked you, the Indigenous Strategic Plan and Truth and Reconciliation means. So let me read it out to you. It means understanding the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. So I just wanted to introduce UNDRIP in for us to get all familiar with these words as we move towards truth and reconciliation. UNDRIP is a really important international declaration that Indigenous peoples have human rights. So it's really important to remember UNDRIP as we go forward. Being aware of unconscious bias and learning, unlearning, and relearning, another really important point. A lot of us, we're new to our unconscious biases, so as much learning as we can do with if we're assuming something, and we all make mistakes, right? We don't intend for you to be perfect. We're all making mistakes as we go along, but it's really important to be aware of your surroundings, aware of who is Indigenous in the group, aware of ethical space and providing space for Indigenous peoples to lead us. Some Indigenous peoples don't like that. So again, changing, being flexible, shifting, not taking it personally, and checking in and seeing if it's okay of what you're doing is okay, right? So we're all different. Indigenous peoples, we're not pan-Indigenous. So, and we all have different personalities. So it's a lot of people are so afraid to navigate that space, but I'm going to encourage you right now to navigate that space. Be an ally, be an effective ally, be an authentic ally. So educating myself on the Truth and Reconciliation calls to action. Alberta, the Truth and Reconciliation has 94 calls to action, and it includes the universities, post-secondaries, as well as includes health, education, justice, children. So it's all encompassing, but we do have specific sections for post-secondary. Understanding the history of the land you're working on. This is really important because it's an Indigenous learning. Indigenous people, we feel so connected to the land, right? So we encourage everyone to feel where you are, understand the land, appreciate the land, right? This is an Indigenous learning, right? Let's indigenize. Let's bring the land into the classrooms. Let's bring the land into our committees. I know it's kind of vague, but I'm just going to plant that seed and we can move on from there. Decolonizing. So we've already mentioned this, and it sounds like you are well on your way. And I really appreciate the groundswell that is happening. It's not really coming from top down. It's coming from the bottom up. The younger people are understanding this more than the older people. The younger people are saying, look, things have to happen, right? And I love the influence coming from the ground up, the groundswell as it's reported in the Indigenous Strategic Plan. So what does learning, unlearning, and relearning mean to you? Do you need to learn how to apply the Indigenous Strategic Plan in your professional lives? Do you want to become an ally? Does it give you an opportunity to look at the things you thought were true from a structured lens using the Indigenous Strategic Plan? Instead of like, oh, it's my fault, I feel so guilty for what my forefathers did, I can't believe what happened, I'm supposed to feel guilty. Let's have some tools here. Let's have some tools for both of us moving forward. Let's have some tools that we can both share. Inclusivity, yes. Honoring everyone, yes. Right? Humanity, humility, humanity, courage, love, kindness, patience, time. Weaving in some Indigenous teachings in there. Good. So these are kind of the things that I'm thinking of as we move forward, these little captures. I'm going to move to the next slide. Oh, okay. So these are the 3 takeaways. Where are we at for time? So, here's my conclusion. Just wait, I'm gonna switch. I want to quote Dr. Florence Glanfield again with our conclusion. She states, undoing the legacy of colonialism and advancing conciliation. So note, she doesn't say reconciliation, because it never happened. So why are we reconciling? It's conciliation, she states. That is establishing respectful nation-to-nation relationships is a difficult journey. It requires generosity, kindness, and patience. And above all, it takes unlearning. We, as individuals and as a collective, are only beginning to take steps to unlearn colonialism, which means in many ways we are still at the beginning of this complex, generational, and ultimately non-linear work. Right? This is the best quote here too. I love Dr. Florence Glanfield. Oh, so if people have done my last slide, let's go on to some takeaways. Let's see a takeaway. I'm going to share my screen. What are 3 takeaways from sharing Indigenous Knowledges workshop today? Open to learning, self-education, decolonizing spaces, connecting, allyship, kindness, action, relearning. Love it. It takes time. Yes, absolutely. Honoring, unlearning colonialism, integrity. Oh, yes. Accountability. Oh, I love it. It's no small action. This is amazing. Start somewhere, exactly. Right? So we can start individually, we can start in our personal lives, but I want us to start thinking about collectively in our professional lives. Let's have these uncomfortable conversations and let's begin the work that is needed today. And let's do it together. Being mindful of others, right? Love it. new thinking, seeing new directions, connecting. So the university is calling on us to do it. So it is safe to do so. Be confident out there that we are actually taking the correct steps. I have one last thing, and Cole, you can put it in the chat if you'd like. Yes, so I'm part of a authentic allyship project. So it's me, an Indigenous person, and an ally, a non-Indigenous person, and we've created the authentic allyship project. And we do a bunch of things, but we've made a workbook, and it's a really, really simple workbook. But if anyone is shy to start off, I really, you should check out the workbook. Here it is. And there's notes about reflecting of what you can do, and there's commitments that you can make, and little check boxes that you can do with starting on your journey as an individual, right? So we encourage you to do this. It's a very simple workbook that anyone can begin their journey on. So yeah, I'm really excited about our next steps together in 2023. I hope I've given you some tools to utilize from the Indigenous Strategic Plan. The foundations for that, of course, is the Truth and Reconciliation calls to action. It sounds like people are on the right path. Does anybody have any questions?
And folks, feel free to just unmute yourself. And yes, Joy, we can definitely do that. I'll include all of the links that Andrea shared with me before the call.
Lisa.
Hi, Andrea. I just had one of my questions is, again, in kind of trying to learn about and understand the different protocols, you know, when interacting with Indigenous individuals or communities, especially when inviting them to our events. I have a general understanding that we, you know, like Indigenous, Métis, and Inuit protocols and practices are different, and that often just asking, of course, is the best way to find out. But I'm just curious if there's any kind of resources beyond Googling that are kind of tried and true for learning about what all of those different cultural practices and protocols are, just to have a base level of understanding to maybe help know what questions to ask.
Thanks, Lisa. I don't know if the elders protocol, the University of Alberta has, I don't know if they go into protocols. We shouldn't be Googling. We should have a proper protocol document to utilize. I know that the Dene don't usually accept tobacco. But I know the Cree and Blackfoot do. But yeah, even I make mistakes, and I always ask. And I always get pronunciations wrong because I've been colonized as well. So don't be afraid to ask, but yes, that's a really good point. We need some more information, but we like relational things. So the more you talk to us, well, the more you talk to us, the better it is, but that's my opinion. But you get into a relationship with us. So we often feel used because people usually come in, ask a question, and then take off for the rest of our lives. So creating relationships with us is also really important. It's reciprocal, right? So then we can tell you more about Indigenous ways of knowing. So yeah, so Lisa, we don't have a document yet. Kaylee, hi.
Hi. I'm actually just going to speak to Lisa, if that's okay. I'm actually on a committee right now with Florence's office where we are developing the elder protocols and guidelines to accompany the new elder honorarium process. So it is coming. We are in the early stages of developing it, and of course we want to talk to our elders and knowledge keepers and make sure that we have all the correct and information, and that we're publishing information that isn't that isn't culturally sensitive, because we don't like writing everything down. So I just wanted to say it is coming, but definitely piggyback on Andrea's comment that if you don't know, just ask. We love sharing that knowledge. But just know, yeah, that document is in the process of being developed.
Yeah, thank you, Kaylee. And we also don't like writing everything down as well, right? Relationality, relationality. Anybody else? Guide to read. I know, right? So we got to get out there and experience things and make mistakes, for sure, for sure. Don't be ashamed. Don't be ashamed. We like it. We tease you. That's a good thing when Indigenous elders are teasing you. That means they like you. Anybody else? As we conclude, 3 minutes left. All right. Everyone's thanking me. Thank you, everybody, for attending. And thank you, Indigenous colleagues, for attending and being patient with me. And I really appreciate everybody being here today and learning some things as we move forward into the new year. I look forward to seeing what everybody's up to and meeting again. So yeah,
Thanks
have
so
a great
much,
day,
Andrea.
everybody. Thanks, Cole.
Yeah, and just for your own information, Andrea, I think this was actually one of our best attended lunch and learns that we've ever had.
Oh, that's music to my ears. That makes me feel so good. There's a lot to learn. Thanks, Jillian.
Yep.
Thank you so much, Andrea.
Thank you, Sarah. And thank you very much, NASA, for the protocol. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate it. All my relations. Megwich, Marcy, hi, everybody.